Start. Okay. So let's get started. I'm just going to go through some housekeeping stuff to start out with. For some of our folks, it may be repetitive, but I think it's always helpful to highlight some of these things. We are conducting this meeting over Teams. So I've just now muted everybody. So if you're talking over your computer and you want to unmute, just use the mic button. If you click on it, you can quickly mute or unmute. If you want to contribute something, but there's a discussion going on and you want to just queue up your contributions, feel free to use the raise your hand function. I'll keep an eye on that and make sure to call on you. And the other thing is, if you're calling in on multiple devices, if you have a phone and a computer, just note that, especially if you're using your phone for audio, that I've muted everybody. So if you're trying to talk, it's not just about unmuting your phone. You're going to have to press *6. All right, just remember you have to press *6 to unmute on your phone. That's how the system will know that you're unmuting. And then and the other tip is to reduce some feedback. I recommend just muting your computer. So because you're probably using your computer just for video, so you mute your computer. And just leave your phone for audio. All right. Okay, great. So why are we meeting here? First of all, thank you for taking time this morning to meet at 8:30. I hope you guys had your coffee. But the purpose of this project, for those who weren't on this call or weren't part of these meetings in the past, is that we're working with ODOT TSM to essentially look ahead and try to plan for the next 5 to 10 years. Where will this group be in terms of data collection, or where do they want to be in terms of data collection? What are our needs of our customers? And along with that, what are the skills, equipment, systems, training, all the stuff? What do we need to do to get there? There's a lot of changes in the transportation world. There's a lot of introduction. Our customers are using more probe data and all this stuff. So how do we respond to that? That's the purpose of this plan. And the purpose of this specific meeting is to really talk about what we've done so far. So we've gone through a series of sessions about trying to identify what are the needs of ODOT TSM, the needs of ODOT as an organization, and the needs of some of our customers that are outside of ODOT, the community. And we've compiled some of this list, so some of these needs. And the purpose of this meeting is for us to share some of these findings and then have a discussion on how do we go, like basically inform where do we go next from here. Right? We have some resources set aside to do some engagement on trying to learn more about technology, learn more about what other agencies are doing to solve some of these problems. But we want to get an idea of what are the problems we want to focus on. So that's the purpose of this meeting. Maybe I can do a quick round of introduction. So for those who are new, my name's Yemin. I'm the consultant project manager on this project, and I work with Kittleson and Associates. Maybe we can start on the Kittleson side. Alice, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Scott, and then JR?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Alice Root. I'm the primary analyst on this, and I'm also with Kittleson.
This is Scott Baird. I'm our project principal for this project. I'm in our Bend office.
JR here with Quality Counts, focusing on data collection.
Thanks, guys. And then maybe we can switch it over to ODOT TSM. Chris Harris, do you want to go ahead first?
Sure. Hey, this is Chris Harris. I'm the agency project manager for this project and the TSM team lead right now. Guys, when it's your turn, don't forget to hit *6, please.
All right. Don, do you want to go next, followed by Ray and then Ali?
You bet. This is Don Crownover, the normal team leader for TSM, but which Chris is holding right now because I am mostly devoted to the MS2 project to convert our old data to the new database.
Great. Thanks, Don. Ray? All right. I think Ray, if you're using your phone, you had to press *6 to unmute. Ali, do you want to go ahead next? Ray will circle back to you. Ali, and then Josh.
Good morning. I'm Ali Jafanejad. I am a traffic monitoring coordinator, helping Chris and Don and preparing reports for different things.
Josh?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Josh Lucas. I'm a traffic data analyst. I'm just in the trenches with the data as it comes in and analyzing permanent traffic counts as well as temporary traffic counts.
Yep. Great. Thank you. Margot, maybe you can go next, and then Michael, and then Simon.
Good morning. Yes, my name is Margot McBride, and I work as a traffic survey interviewer. So basically, I collect traffic data off of video counts, video film, and I do verifications of ATRs to see if they're working correctly. My counts are compared to theirs. Also collect data for studies for specials when we have them. So that's what I do.
Great. Thanks, Margot. Michael?
Sure.
Michael, looks like you're still on mute. We'll circle back to you. Maybe Simon, you want to go ahead next?
Hey, good morning, guys. My name is Simon. I work for TSM, traffic data analyst, like Josh, the exact same position. We, just like you said, process and analyzing traffic information.
Great. Thanks, Simon. Paul?
Yeah, this is Paul. I'm with TSM. I'm a field operations coordinator. I support the field equipment that we use for collecting data, and I support the field technicians.
Great. Thanks, Paul. We're going to circle back to Ray and then Michael, see if you guys have sorted out your audio stuff yet.
I think Ray and Kathy are just listening in on the computer. So Ray's a Region 2 field technician, so he goes out and sets counts and works on the ATRs and troubleshoots them. And Kathy helps out. It's kind of Ray's secondhand lady, and does a lot of video count breakdowns as well, like Margot does.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're both listening in. So we'll just keep an eye on the chat for them. I think Michael should be working on calling in, but he's a traffic data analyst, and so he helps out a lot with our annual counting process and HPMS reporting, our transportation volumes table, and kind of any fun data crunching jobs that we throw his way.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. Great. Thanks. I will keep an eye on the chat. And Alice, if you don't mind, if anything comes up, any questions, please feel free to insert yourself if someone's sharing something that we want to discuss. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead. So the agenda today, the first half of this is really sharing what we've learned so far, and I'll attempt to try to organize some of the information that we've heard after listening to some of our stakeholders, so that we're going to go through our customers and our partners, our field technology needs, and some of the results from a survey we just sent over to the TSM group. And then the second half of this discussion, I really want to focus on hearing from you, like based on what we've heard so far. The question I do want to pose to all of you is, first of all, is what I'm sharing reflective of your understanding of the priorities? Screw everything, all the work we've done so far. Just take a step back and think, does this make sense? And secondly, I really want to start thinking, okay, is there anything that we're doing today that doesn't fit our priorities, right? So I hope you kind of think about that as I share some of this information. So, okay, great. Let's go ahead and get started. So key customers and partners. I don't know whether it's an odd term for some folks, but I like to use this term customers and partners because, while we may not be transacting money with some of our clients, it is good to kind of think of them as customers, as people that we exist to serve our clients, right? So I think it's helpful for us to, there are tons of different folks asking for different kinds of data from ODOT TSM. So we try to categorize these different groups just to provide a bit of clarity on some of these categories and help us prioritize where do we need to focus on, So let me try to break it down a little bit. So the first set of customers, I consider them our core TSM group, right? So a key partner is obviously our technicians and our managers, people who manage the actual data collection, who actually go out in the field, maintain the equipment, collect the data, bring it back, coordinate, help get the technicians out there. Anything to do with the operation of getting out there and collecting data and maintaining equipment. Like I put that under the field technicians and managers bucket. They have pretty unique needs from the other group, which is the data analysts, right? The people who then consume the data, crunch it, and package it up so that it's consumable by all your clients, right? And then we have the reason why this unit exists, which is a requirement for the HPMS reporting that's done through the Road Inventory and Classification Services unit. So I kind of see these three groups as being distinct, having distinct needs, right? One of them is collecting data, the other one's processing the data, and the other one's about how do we report that data for our requirements. And then you kind of have the second layer of needs, which is your ODOT customers. These are other units or other functions within ODOT that rely or use TSM data, or TSM data has the opportunity to augment what they're doing. So one of the biggest groups here is TPOW. They have many different functions. They have everything from trial demand modeling, where they're trying to forecast what's happening in the future, and they do use our TSM data to calibrate those models. They use the data to do traffic operations analysis, whether it's at intersections or whether it's on freeways, in order to figure out alternatives, like how do we need to widen a road? How do we plan work zones? They use our data for that. And then they use the data for general planning, for long range planning, so they can program projects, in the long run. Each of these different activities have slightly different needs. Some of them rely more on high resolution data. Some rely more on, I don't need high resolution data, but I need it continuously collected. But the mixture of all this stuff covers everything, So I think TPOW is a big user, and that itself can be broken down. And then you have other players like the pet and bike program, where it's not so much of a heavy user of TSM, if they're even a user right now, but they do have unique needs. They're collecting counts. They're trying to collect pet bike counts. That's a growing need. There isn't a lot of available data right now for pedestrian and bicycles. And they're starting to want to purchase more continuously collected pet bike count data equipment, so like eco counters, but they don't have the functions, they don't have the ability to mobilize people, and basically everything that TSM does, they don't have that capability right now. So that might be a partnership opportunity there. And then you have other functions like pavement designers and bridge engineering, who are it seems like they're mostly satisfied with a lot of data that we're getting from TSM. For a lot of their needs, it seems to be working out. If there's anything on bridge engineering, it might be just more ATRs at more bridges, But for the most part, this group seems to be pretty satisfied with the data that they're getting. Maybe they would like it parsed a little bit differently so it's more workable. But in terms of content, it's good, And then we have commerce and compliance. This group, or motor carrier, right? This group is really about using weigh in motion and license plate readers at their weighing stations. So they are a potential partner because there's a lot of data that can be shared. And I know they actually do share some data right now with TSM, but there's more opportunity to think about how do we share data between the two groups. And for them, they're interested in using TSM data for doing all kinds of activities, especially like forecasting activities, trying to understand, trying to predict what trucks usage will be like in the future to do some revenue forecasting and that kind of stuff. And then the other layer is your ITS and signal operators. This is a group that's collecting their own data because of the equipment. So they may have a Bluetooth network, to collect travel time information. They have traffic signals that are collecting data at the traffic signal itself. The detectors themselves do collect some data with varying levels of quality. They may not quite pass the TSM, the HPMS requirement for reporting, but it is useful data. So there is data that's being continuously collected, and there's a desire for this group to consume data from TSM. If we can provide them real-time data from our sensors, they can do a lot of active management of traffic, with their system, so they can react and respond to things if we can give them real-time and reliable data. So there's interest in exploring what are possibilities with this group. And this group, while ODOT has ITS and signals, they also apply to our agencies outside of ODOT. So other public agencies like PBOT, Washington County, Clackamas County, all these agencies that maintain traffic signals as well, or if they are on ODOT facilities, that might be stuff that's of interest to TSM or our customers. And the next layer is we talked about TSM, talked about ODOT, and the last layer is our external customer needs, right? So we talk about ITS and signals, but then we have other public agencies, other developers and consultants, whenever they do a traffic impact study for a development, or if they're doing a small cities trying to do some sort of long range planning, they may want some of this data to help with their planning exercises. Or if they're working through ODOT on some of these long range plans that's funded through a TGM contract, that's data that will be useful for them. So your general traffic community is a customer. And the other layer to that is researchers and universities. They're very similar. They want the data to do kinds of things, but they have a slightly different need. For them, they're much more particular about wanting data to be granular, detailed, and easy to work with. And if there's any manipulation of data, they want it documented. They want clarity on metadata, where things are coming from. They don't care so much about real-time data, but they want data that they can fully understand where it's coming from, so they can do their research, right? So vast array of needs from different groups. Satisfying all of this is everything under the sun. So we need to prioritize. But
hey, Yimin.
Yep.
I think there's one group we might have missed on the ODOT customer needs that are a pretty big group is our project delivery folks. And so that's made up kind of two things, kind of our headquarters safety side, safety and standards, and then the folks out in the regions that are doing project analysis and design and things like that. And so they're looking at everything from where TPOW does kind of the planning side, they would be more the design side of things. So looking at the turn lanes and how many lanes and width, construction zone, work windows, and things like that.
And okay, yeah, that's while the function is different from TPOW, I do see it sounds like the need and granularity for that data, there is some overlap with TPOW in terms of functionally what you'll be providing them. It sounds like, okay, that's good. I'll noodle on that, and we might update our customers and partners list, and I'll think about how they might be different. But good, thanks for pointing that out. And anybody, if there's feel free to jump in or raise your hands if there's anything that you want to add to this. That the purpose of this is our synthesis. There might be things that we missed out, so we want to hear from you. So that's our attempt of classifying our customers and partners. So what did we hear from these customers and partners, right? We have sort of 9 or 12 buckets and some of these buckets have a little bit of overlap with one another, but this is our best attempt at trying to package up some of these needs. So starting at the first half of it, this is what I kind of classify as TSM. What do we need to do our job better, right? First of all, we need to satisfy the HPMS requirements. It's almost not really a need. It's kind of like a requirement, but we exist because we're providing data for HPMS reporting. And then for the other things like improving safety in the field, we heard a lot about the challenges of getting a spotter when you're in some of these metro areas, and then the challenges of just having to deal with equipment when you're being put in, when you're being exposed to traffic. So can we do something to get you out of being exposed from traffic? And even then, there's still things about reducing the amount of time that you need to spend in the field. I think is the idea here. We have the need to modernize equipment. I know we have a lot of legacy equipment, which requires there's a lot of maintenance considerations because of that, managing firmware and software updates, but also just having to deal with a lot of different cables, making sure systems can talk to one another and stuff like that. There's a need to modernize some of this equipment. And that includes communication as well, and then we have streamlining of data collection and processing. I know that a lot of the manual effort, a lot of the video stuff can be a pretty tedious manual process to reduce that data, and it has to go through a quality control process as well. So that's pretty labor intensive. Is there some way we can find some efficiencies and make life a little easier? Institutionalizing knowledge. This was emphasized about, right now, Don Cronover has a lot of this knowledge of what to do with TSM locked in his head, So can we document some of this stuff for the longevity of this unit, to make sure that this unit's a little more resilient as folks plan to move on or do different things in their career or retire, want to make sure that that knowledge is retained and the next generation can continue doing the good work. And lastly, we heard a bit about asset tracking and management. A lot of equipment, a lot of stuff that's being moved around the state to collect data. That data is maintained through spreadsheets, and the condition is logged manually through spreadsheets. So there's some need or desire to make this process a little more formalized, so you have a better idea where things are and hopefully be a bit more efficient with coordinating your assets. The next list of needs is sort of the stuff that's born out of our customers within ODOT, right? So first one is improving data quality and granularity. That really just means that if there's a detector that's busted, is there something that can flag it as being, hey, something is like that my ADTs here are not going to be correct because this detector is not working. Or can we get more granular data? We heard a lot about getting data at a per vehicle level. So one record you have a timestamp for each vehicle that was detected instead of aggregating everything. So and then smaller time slices. There's a desire to get a little more detailed with the data. There's also a desire to expand the data, both in availability and coverage. And what this means is basically just a lot of folks want data outside of ODOT facilities. And I heard a lot about some of this data is actually available, and that's a different issue. But there's a need for just wanting more. It's when we do trial demand models, they're trying to calibrate models within a MPO region. So how do we get more data within that region so we can calibrate our models? There's a desire to get data for other modes, so e-scooters, bicycles, particularly pet bike, especially now that we have pet bike program. That's a need there. There's a need for better sharing and exchanging data with others. I mentioned how some of this data does exist. Some private developers, when they fund a traffic impact study, they do collect that data, and it is some ODOT folks review it and do save it, but it's currently not in the same system or it's not well known. So how do we not only share that data, but maybe try to create a common standard so the data is interchangeable, so some of that data can be used for other functions in ODOT, And the last item is accessibility and distribution of data. So how do we get the data to you? So I heard a lot about there's no clear or there's TCM, but like some folks struggle and know like what's even available on TCM. And I know that there's a shift to MS2, and hopefully MS2 might help fix some of these things. But that's one of the needs that we've heard. It's about how do we get the data out there and market what we have, you know. And the last item, which is sort of kind of an external customer need, I've heard this more from the signal operators, and I guess you could say this internal too. It depends on how you think about this, but real-time data feeds. We hear this from especially our ITS community saying, if you can tell me what's happening in our traffic signals or what's happening at your ATR at real time, so I can respond to it and change my timings to accommodate that special event, incident, detour, natural disaster, whatever it is. If you can give me data in real time, I can react to it in real time. So that's kind of a desire, and a step down from it that maybe not reflected in this chart, in this graphic right now, but is one level below real time, is continuously collected data. So maybe it's not real time, but can I get data from TSM daily on our ATRs, or can I get it every week? You know, so that's another twist on that real time data feed. You know, can we get regularly updated data? Right. So, oh, I meant to animate this slide, but that's fine. What I want to show here is just set the setting of this is kind of a small sample in blue of the data that is currently being collected by TSM, right? I know our scope right now is to collect count data. So we get vehicle classifications, directional volumes, all this count-based data, you know. But then what our customers are asking, the stuff in gray is what our customers are asking. You know, we've heard a lot about ped and bike, which I know some of that's being collected for the temporary short counts. There's a lot of signal data that's being collected, a lot of need for understanding work zone or work zone information to be reflected in the data, air quality, travel time, speed, easily, very quickly gets out of control, right? Lots of different data needs. So the question that I want to pose out there and for you guys to start thinking is, where do we want to set the boundary of what TSM does? Should we stick to counts and that's our function and that's what we do? Or is there room to expand a little bit into some of these other metrics, and how do we do that? You know, a very natural way is that if you're collecting counts already, can we be collecting speed as well as a value add? You know, or if we already do that, you know, or if we're putting sensors out there that are already monitoring the weather, can that information be or could that be a future equipment? You know, when we put whatever future technology we're going to go with. You know, do we collect air quality as well while we're collecting count data? So, is there opportunities to do more with our current activities, and is there a desire to do more? Maybe something to think about. Not necessarily need to have the answer right now. So, last item I want to share with you before we start getting to the discussion bit is survey results. We sent out a survey, a very quick, fast survey where we gave the 12 needs that we highlighted that I shared earlier, and we just asked folks to rank from not important at all to very important. And this just is our own ranking of based on the responses. We received 8 responses on that survey that was done online, and nothing is not important at all. so they're all important. Some there's just varying degree of importance. But it's not surprising that if you look at the top 6, for example, or top 5, you know, needs, these are needs that pertain to ODOT TSM, right? So how do we do what we're currently doing, but better, faster, more efficient, safer, you know, basically not expanding the scope of what we're doing, but being just more competent at what we're doing, right? That's kind of the first 5 needs, which is not surprising because that's who we are. That's who we reached out to, right? So obviously it's driven by the needs of that group. At the bottom of that list here is some of the other stuff that is more that's coming from our customers, which is accessibility. That ranked at highest in terms of what our customers would want, you know, which is just wanting to be able to know what is the data out there and how do I retrieve that data. I thought it was interesting that asset tracking and management, which falls under the category of the TSM needs, it didn't rank very high, in terms of the the priorities. So while that is an important aspect, some folks did rank it as very important. That maybe implies that the way we allocate our resources on this project, maybe asset management is not something we focus on, but we might sprinkle in some thoughts of what to do next. How do we further address this item for a future project, and then kind of focus on the core needs up here, which is safety and the satisfying HPMS requirements, streamlining data collection. The other one that I thought was interesting is real-time data feed as well. I was expecting that most of the very important numbers might come from Chris Harris. I thought it might come from you or Chris Wright, but it was actually not from you guys. So I thought it was interesting, and I'd like to get some thoughts on why we responded the way we did on the real-time data feed. It seems to be some folks are saying slightly important, some folks are saying very important, nothing in between. One of the more polarized responses. So I'm going to take a pause right there. I think that this is useful because one thing you can think about with this survey is, your safety and HPMS stuff. It's ranked really high. It's obvious from looking at this that this is the most important aspects to be thinking about. So you can't think of it as requirements, right? It's just no longer just a need. It's thing that you need to function. So as we think about future technologies, maybe that's the lens we need to look at it. If it doesn't satisfy a certain criteria for safety, let's not even consider it. Let's move on and think about other equipment. Maybe that's how we can kind of reduce some of these results. But I want to take a pause there, and we're entering that discussion time. So I want to get some thoughts from folks. Give an opportunity for folks to react to this. Does this reflect what your priorities within TSM? Does this seem correct, or is there something that seems a little off? Or if you have some input in the real-time data feed, I'd love to get your reasoning for why you ranked it the way you did. Maybe Chris Harris, I'll put you on the spot if you don't mind. Share some thoughts on the reactions to this survey.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, to me, I think this does a pretty good job of bringing together, the important things that we do in TSM. Like I said, safety is always going to be, first and foremost, and I'm glad that everyone responded in that way. And I hope that really is the truth, that we put that first, and we're doing our best for you guys, and we can help improve that. And HPMS, like I said, the reason why we're here. So yeah, then we get into things, like I said, kind of streamlining what to do and institutionalizing knowledge. Well, if we don't know what to do, it's hard to streamline it. So those are both pretty important as well. And then then we get into kind of the things that are a little bit of headaches in our day-to-day. So dealing and maintaining old equipment, or making sure that our customers can get data and they know about data. Those are things that are they're working right now, but they take more and more time and resources as we move forward. And then we get into kind of the process improvement. So we've met our core needs, but now how can we build upon those core needs? So making sure that we're getting more data, higher quality data, more sites. And so we're satisfying our requirements right now, but we can always improve. So that makes sense that we're stepping down through and hitting the core needs, and then we're looking at kind of process improvement things. The other modes, right now it's not a requirement for us. People ask about it a lot, and it's really helpful, but those aren't the type of requests that are going to make or break a project, or going to have a huge impact on what we do and what our customers do. So that makes sense there. Asset tracking and management, I think that ranks low just because there's only a few folks, I think, that dabble in that. Mm-hmm. And so I think it is really important, but these bottom two, like you said, are a little more polarizing. I think that's just because of the distribution of workload within our group. Mm-hmm. So some people, are really that's a big part of their job, and other folks, don't deal with it so much. And so I think that's kind of where we're starting to see the breaks as we get down lower there. And yeah, I'm interested in the real-time data feed as well. I think, half of our staff, I think, deals with giving data, creating reports, analyzing, and there isn't really a real-time data need. But I have a funny suspicion that our data analysts, our folks working on ATR data and interfacing with the customers there, they might have a little bit different view on things because they're getting bombarded with data requests. I need this right now, especially around COVID. We've had to work a whole new process around doing more regular real-time or closer to real-time data updates. And so those folks that are in there and doing those customer requests would probably benefit from more of a real-time data feed, where the other folks, we're giving reports months down the road, and so we're working on HPMS stuff, which is once a year, so it's not quite as important.
Yeah. I just want to stress that the point of doing this survey isn't so much to say that we're going to proportionally allocate our resources in this, and real-time data feeds way at the bottom, we're not going to care about it. But it's more of just informing where our priorities are. Like the first two are the most important items, and those are requirements, not even like a desire anymore. Those are requirements, so that's how we look at things. But for some of the other stuff, it's just understanding like groupings of things, like the sharing, exchanging of data, improving data quality, and expanding availability and coverage. I suspect this is, first of all, they're kind of tied, it depends on how you look at it, but that might be an item that's more if we need to focus on one or some, or when we're doing some scenario planning on how do we, what are different budget scenarios and what can we, during our transition planning, maybe this can be something that comes out from our customers. Maybe our customers, okay, if I had to pick one of those three between sharing of data, between improving the granularity of data or increasing coverage, maybe I'll pick increasing coverage. So like that might come from the customers as well. So this is more just to understand the extremes and sort of like the safety and HPMS. Okay, we hear you. Processing is high up on that list as well. We hear you, but it's not intended to be taken down as science. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting once. So this was just our unit, TSM's take on things. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to hear back from our customers, and they theirs might be completely flip-flopped, and I imagine a lot of the folks, you take this table and almost turn it upside down because we're other than Jennifer over at Rick's and us, none of our other customers really care so much about the HPMS requirements. They have a completely separate job to do, and so getting real-time data and having more coverage and other modes, those, a lot of our customers, I think, are going to start ranking those much higher. So it'll be interesting to see, and we'll just make sure we keep that in context as we get the other results back.
Yep. Michael, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in the observation that the survey focused on what we would need to do our jobs, and it didn't ask where disparities were. So, for example, safety, of course, is very, very important, but we've always been pretty darn safe. So that doesn't imply a huge deficit there, whereas real-time data feed, that's something we simply don't have. So I just wanted to throw in that observation.
That's a very, very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Can I ask for your quick reaction there? You gave two examples. Where do you see the biggest deficits right now?
Well, I'm not the right person to answer that, but it's just a general observation in the nature of the survey.
Yeah, no, that's a very good distinction, right? Maybe that's another twist or angle we kind of need to look at this as well. Is this is what we need to do our jobs, but where are the deficits? I like that a lot. Anybody have any thoughts on that question?
Maybe Don, since you've been around the block a little bit, you might be able to give us a little bit of your perspective.
Institutionalizing knowledge stands out in my mind.
Yeah.
On to you, Don.
I know. I have to punch in a key code to get into my phone and get to the *6. So it took a little minute. Obviously the institutionalizing knowledge, and I know a lot of people bring me up, but that actually covers quite a few of our jobs in the unit. Knowing how to communicate with the ATRs. When we hire someone, in the field, they need to run with one of the other technicians for a while. All of the various positions that we have at least some level of knowledge that needs to be passed on in some way. Some of them by documentation, some of them like some of the pieces of the field work. It's really an experiential passing of knowledge. How hard are you pulling on that tube as you're setting it up and things like that? And so it's not all a book thing of just documentation too. Real-time data, I think, but I don't know that people understand that one real well. It's real time doesn't just mean quick turnaround, 3 days compared to 3 weeks. It's actually you're reaching out and getting the data of what is happening right now. It's being able to respond in real time, send a truck out there, send a message to a variable message sign because of what's happening in the data. And so it's something that we have absolutely no ability to do with our current equipment. You actually destroy data by reaching out to the equipment to ask it what's happening right now. So that's just the way ours work. But yeah, I do like. I think the survey results we have here are really good in terms of prioritization, but I really do like having that extra question of which pieces are bigger deficits, and not only what's deficit now, but what could be deficit in the future. I mean, the safety aspect is always something that we have to look at and look at what problems people are facing out there, because that's changing as we increase the volumes out there and speeds. It just makes the danger for the technicians that much greater. And
yeah, great.
And of course, our technology deficit is growing year by year with our current machines and their ability to interact with current computer operating systems and things like that. So that one is a major one, and of course that's a major part of why we started the project. Is we know we've got to replace it. So.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Don. That's I'm tempted to kind of make a quick edit to that survey and send another version out and get responses on where we see the deficit. I think it'd be really interesting to cross compare what's important with the largest deficits. I think that I can almost see like a chart kind of being drawn, like important, not important, and that kind of thing. Paul, I see you have your hand raised as well. Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think the topic of modernizing equipment should be number one, because without that, you can't almost, complete all the other tasks on here. You can't share the data because it's not quality data. You can't get quality data without modernizing your equipment. Modernizing equipment also would help improve your field safety. But again, I just think modernizing equipment should be right up there at the top in order to complete all these other tasks.
Right. They certainly have overlap, like there's prerequisites for one or the other. Yeah, totally. I agree with you. Like streamlining as well, if you're trying to get equipment that reduces the time that people are spending out in the field, or that's you getting new technology, that's part of modernizing as well. Yeah. Great. Okay. Anybody else, if you have any input, feel free to chime in or raise your hand virtually. I'm just going to go set the stage for a few other items I was hoping we can cover during this time as well, which is, where do we go from here? We're sharing this information because it's interesting, but also because we have resources, we have a lot of items out there to kind of focus on, but I want to share what we'll be doing, right? And this is evolving. I'm not coming here with a prescriptive list of things that we're doing, but I'm just sharing with you what we are under contract to do, so then we can figure out how do we best use the resources allocated. We have 3 tasks in our contract, and the first one is a field technology evaluation. That includes a sort of reviewing the technologies that are available from our vendors, brochures, and things like that, to try to provide an idea of a state of the system kind of perspective. This is what's all out there. If you're doing video counts, we've got the AI-based video classifications. How do we categorize the landscape of data collection technology? But that doesn't get very in depth into individual products. So then another tool that we have is product demonstrations. So we have up to 5 that we've as a contingency task, and that basically allows us, based on what questions we want answered. If let's say we're very focused on if we fix our video technology, we fix everything. So maybe we could use those 5 to focus on just distinct differences between different video camera between different vendors. Or it could be used in a more broad stroke where we're trying to understand, okay, maybe there's certain activities that we're doing. Maybe it's the continuous count stuff that just has legacy equipment, and we want to focus on that, and then we could be looking at how does radar compare to video, like machine learning based video counts and things like that, and just a more general technology versus technology comparison rather than a specific vendor to specific vendor comparison. So some flexibility in how we use these tools. We also have peer reviews where we can interview 4 state DOTs to learn from their experience on data collection and their equivalent of TSM. And we also have the ability to, review some, academic and practitioner resources and other vendor-based materials. So anything that's internet-based or reading some kind of publication, we can try to take all that in, ingest all that, and synthesize it for just the things that matter to this group. And then we have another task to explore opportunities for data integration. So I know a big part is the MS2 effort that Don Cronover is leading, and all the other ODOT systems that are in play, like TransGIS, the INRIX systems, and all these things. Like, what is the role of TSM with all these different systems, and is there ability to interoperate and share some of this data? Where do we want to go with that? How do we go about that data integration question? We have a task to explore that. So what you're seeing is a bunch of tools. We could use it in vastly different ways, and I think all of that depends on sort of the responses from this group. I think what I was hoping to I want to ask the question of, do the activities we are currently doing fit our priorities? And I think this kind of it's a little bit building off the discussion we just had about deficits, right? We talked about what are our needs, but what are our deficits? Like, where are we not doing as great of a job or could do better? So maybe I can start with that, since we've been having that discussion already. Anybody have any thoughts on this question? What activities, what are we currently doing that doesn't fit our priority? I think that's what I'm interested in hearing.
This is Chris. My thoughts on this one a little bit is that we're really trying to focus on new technology, and so that's where we're putting a lot of our resources. But some of the things that fell down on the priority list a little bit for us, they're still important, and I think they're still worth acknowledging through these efforts, just not dumping as many resources towards it. But a good opportunity to get some insight on those is through those peer state interviews. So I think talking about data standards and how other people are doing different modes, and their experience with providing real-time data from their ATRs or things like that, I think, and through some academic research. We don't need to go out doing, or asset management. That's another big one. That, like we've mentioned many times, asset management could be an entire project on its own, but I don't think we want to let it slip through the cracks. And we also have an opportunity to learn from other folks, which is, in my opinion, always the best way to do things. Let other people make the mistakes, and then we learn from it, and then try to make it fit our system. So, as you guys are thinking through this stuff, I don't think anything on that list is worth ignoring. I think it's all really important, and we've heard that from you guys and from our customers. So it's really just going through and figuring out how much of the resources in this project we're going to allocate to those types of things, and where do they fit in the best? Where can we get the best information, in the most efficient way? So, just some thoughts.
I agree, and I like that approach. That's what I was thinking as well. Is your peer state interviews is where you can cast a wide net, and kind of every agency has a slightly different thing that they can talk a lot about. You might have 10 questions for them. They might have only 4 that they can answer well, and they answered it really well, or maybe it could be just the one, but that one makes it worth it. But I think that's the group where you can learn a lot and set the seed for what do we do next, but I think that the inclination, I'm with you in the inclination of maybe using the technology evaluation piece is hyper focused on technology evaluation, right? Anything that affects the modernization equipment, things that go in the field. And then some of the peer agency and lit review stuff is the more holistic, trying to answer some of the other questions and at least provide some guidance on what to do next, Okay. Feel free to jump in about this question, but I'm just trying to get the brain juices flowing. So I'm going to go to the next question and see if maybe this one sparks any thoughts. What are the kinds of data collection activities that we're doing today that puts our technicians most at risk? So I know that being exposed to traffic is an issue, but what I'm trying to understand, because I don't spend my time in the field as much, so I'm trying to understand, are there particular activities that are more at risk than others? So is it more dangerous to do continuous counts versus doing turning movement counts? Any of our field techs or anybody who has experience doing this in the field, do you mind chiming in on this question?
Probably the short-term counts where you're laying out road tubes on a continuous basis. Intersection counts, you're sort of out of the roadway with the video camera.
Mm-hmm.
Paul,
So
I'm
those-
thinking about too with our ATRs. You know, we lost an employee to ATR maintenance, and we've been having a lot of urban issues, safety issues, and things like that with going out and trying to maintain cabinets or radar, things like that. So I think getting out on the road is definitely the most risky. Setting cameras in urban areas, I think, could be pretty risky. But also just going out, depending on the location and configuration of our continuous counters, there's definitely some risk involved with that too.
And when you say the cameras in urban areas, those are for short-term turning movement counts type activities. Is that the only activities where you use cameras, or do you use that for link volumes as well?
The cameras are just going to be short-term counts. I think the longest, and correct me if I'm wrong, the longest we do, I think, is 24 hours. They might be set out a little bit longer, but generally shorter, whether they're just volume or they're turning movement. The duration really just changes in the data processing.
Mm-hmm. And the configuration of these continuous counters, what does that entail? Does that, I guess, from my, I don't know what it physically looks like. Are you on the pavement and trying to get things lined up, or I guess where help me understand, where are you when you're trying to configure this stuff, and I understand that when you're putting this on a roadway, there's always fast traffic, right? Compared to the intersection in the middle of a segment, travel speeds are probably very different. But like, how exposed are you? Are you literally on the pavement and trying to configure things, or are you kind of back outside the pavement but still sort of exposed to anybody who's gone off pavement and might, like, can you help me articulate what the safety issue is? Sure.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So there's loops and piezo sensors in the road that need inspection and sealing at times, but also just having a safe space on the side of the road for our technicians to park, because they are there longer than they are to set up tube counts. So they have a cabinet with equipment on the roadside that sometimes needs troubleshooting or replacing batteries or replacing units, but also there's a bit of a height element as well. So we have for some sites we have antennas that have to be mounted high, or even the cabinet and the equipment itself, in snow zones and things like that, has some access type issues, and a lot of that is around again, where's a good place to pull off. Sometimes it works. Sometimes we have equipment in the median of two-way roadways, which is crazy to me. And then trying to think of what else. Getting up on ladders, just accessing sites. A lot of it has to do with where the power and communications, and so that's where I was talking a little bit back and forth around options for solar power, so we're not tied to tapping into an existing power source and having to run a line to a meter and things like that, where it gives us a better chance to pick a safe site rather than an accessible utility site and things like that. So I think there's a lot that we can look at, to help our technicians out, make sure that they're protected from traffic. There's a good place to park. We're collecting the data that we want to collect, but we're not, putting them at risk as much for exposure to traffic, exposure to people, exposure to heights, and all those different types of things.
Mm-hmm. That's some really good insight. I never really thought of solar power as a countermeasure for these things. But yeah, if you're putting ladders and going up to a difficult to reach place, then yeah, I can see how that makes a difference. Okay, so we are at our time. It's 9:30. I think we have a few more questions that is mostly just to get the just going, but I think we can kind of skip them for now. I'll share this slide deck so everyone has it, and we can, if you have any responses, feel free to send it to me by email. I feel like I've gotten a lot out of this just in terms of helping me understand how to prioritize things and come up with a work plan for the next couple of weeks. Just talking about next steps, I'm going to coordinate with Chris Harris. The two of us, we're going to, based on this information, and there might be one more follow-up activity based on what we just talked about, but we'll work on scheduling, trying to get specifics into which DOTs are we going to talk to, and what vendors do we want to reach out to. So we'll come up with a plan. We have a live document that we just update every week on our work plan over the next 6 weeks. So we'll work on populating that to kind of figure out what we want to look into. I'm going to generate the list of peer agency questions. This is going to be like that 10 questions or whatever that tries to cast a wide net on how do we on answering not just the field data collection questions, but also the grand scheme of some of the other stuff we talked about. Maybe get some input on asset management and real-time data feeds and all these other things, right? And in the meantime, I'll also coordinate with Chris on trying to understand the customer side of things. You know, right now we focus on the TSM because that's important. You need to do your jobs for our customers to get what they want, but we want to also kind of get some perspective of customers because there's a few things we might prioritize differently based on their input. So that's about it for today's meeting. You know, I think we covered. I'm at 3 minutes over at this point, but I think this was really helpful. Thank you everybody for you know, all your contributions and this discussion. This was very helpful. Chris, anything else before we adjourn?
Sure. Yeah, just thanks again, everybody. As we get closer into the technology piece, I'll definitely be reaching out to everybody. I know there's a lot of good historical knowledge of, you know, you guys have looked at things in the past. You know the specific failure modes that we've encountered before and what's important to you guys. And so I want to make sure. I know Will couldn't make it today, but he you know shared some of his thoughts on side fire radar and some documents there. So I'll keep you guys in the loop and make sure that we get feedback from you as we start diving into the technology and you know learn from what we've done in the past so we don't just keep repeating the same mistakes. But technology has changed, so hopefully there's opportunity where things have failed in the past where we can check that again and see if those issues have been resolved. So I think we have a great opportunity for that. Look forward to hearing from you guys.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.